Not the kind where you're running for cover, but where you're the one planting the bombs. Where you wake up and before your feet hit the ground, you've already started losing. Where your first thoughts are, I'm not good enough. What's the point? They're better or worse. Why even try? If you've ever had a voice inside your head that tells you all the reasons why you're going to fail, I want you to know something right now. That voice is not you. It is not truth. It is a distortion. The noise of old pain, of broken patterns, of survival responses that no longer serve the life you're trying to build. You cannot change what you do not see. And most people walk through life blindfolded by their own thoughts, unaware that the very thing poisoning their happiness and sabotaging their growth is coming from inside. Negative thinking isn't always loud. It's subtle, quiet, even familiar. That's what makes it dangerous. It slips in like background noise you've grown used to. The voice that says, don't try, you'll fail, or they're better than you, or you're not ready. It whispers in moments of stillness when you wake up, when you look in the mirror, when you sit in silence. And the worst part is, over time, you begin to believe that voice is you, but it's not. That voice is a pattern, and every pattern has a beginning. Most of your negative thinking didn't start from nowhere. It was built over years, sometimes decades, of repetition, of environments that trained your nervous system to brace for disappointment, of people who didn't see your worth, and of moments where fear took root deeper than truth. And when that repetition becomes consistent, your brain begins to wire itself around it. The neural pathways fire again and again, and what was once a thought becomes a habit. What was once a fear becomes a belief, and that belief becomes your lens on the world. That's where awareness becomes the turning point. The moment you recognize, wet? I'm not actually a failure. I'm just thinking like one. You begin to break the loop when you can pause in the middle of the storm and catch yourself mid-thought. That is when your power returns. Because in that space between stimulus and response, between thought and reaction, you now have a choice, and choice is freedom. But awareness isn't passive. It's not just a gentle acknowledgement. It's active. It's intentional. It means you learn to observe your thoughts without being consumed by them. It means you become the witness of your inner world, not its prisoner. Imagine sitting down and watching your mind like a movie. Every thought, every worry, every judgment, every old story. When you can watch it, you no longer are it. You reclaim the position of authority in your own head. There's a moment that changes everything. That split second where you catch yourself saying, I always mess up. And instead of accepting it, you stop. You ask, do I really? Or am I repeating an old script? That question breaks the trance. That pause interrupts the loop. And that's where the healing starts. Not in massive, overnight shifts, but in thousands of micro moments where you choose presence over autopilot. Most people live in reaction mode. Their nervous system is so conditioned by past stress, by trauma, by fear, that their brain is constantly scanning for danger, not because there's danger, but because there was danger, and the brain is trying to protect you. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. Your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for threat detection, doesn't care about your goals. It cares about your survival. And it only knows what you've taught it through repetition. So if you've been feeding it self-doubt, it's going to keep alerting you to failure. If you've been feeding it fear, it's going to keep ringing the alarm even when you're safe. But here's the truth: your nervous system can be retrained. Your mind can be rewired. But only if you begin by noticing. If you keep reacting without awareness, the loop never ends. You'll keep living the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same life. But the moment you observe, really see what your mind is doing, you step out of the loop. You go from being the victim of your thoughts to being their architect. This is the beginning of true transformation, not when you think differently, but when you see the thinking happening and realize it's not truth, it's programming. And if it was programmed in, it can be programmed out. That's the beauty of neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It's not frozen in pain. It's adaptive. It's ready to grow. It just needs you to take the steering wheel. So when the thought shows up, the one that says, you'll never make it, or no one cares, or you're too late, instead of believing it, notice it. Name it. That's fear. That's self-doubt. That's my old pattern. When you name it, you neutralize it. When you see it, you strip it of its mystery. And from there, you begin the real work, the work of reconditioning your mind to respond with clarity instead of fear, with curiosity instead of judgment, with strength instead of surrender. This is not a one-time realization. It's a daily practice. Awareness is a muscle, and every time you use it, it grows stronger. Over time, you'll begin to catch thoughts earlier. You'll feel shifts in your body before the anxiety fully hits. You'll sense the emotional momentum building and choose to breathe instead of break. And in that daily choice, your identity begins to evolve. Awareness is the first weapon because it returns control to where it belongs, to you. It reminds you that you are not your thoughts, you are not your fear, and you are not the product of your past conditioning. You are the observer, the thinker, the one with the power to change. And once you know that, truly know that nothing can ever be the same again. The mind is an echo chamber. It repeats what it's heard, not necessarily what's real. And this is why so many people live inside a story that was never truly theirs. At some point in your life, maybe you were told you weren't smart enough, or attractive enough, or capable enough. Maybe you failed once and someone made that failure your identity. Maybe you were compared to someone else so often that you started seeing yourself through the lens of inferiority. And because those moments hurt deeply, your brain stored them, not just as memories, but as warnings, as rules, as truth. But they were lies repeated so often they became a belief. And belief, when left unchecked, becomes your reality. The transformation begins the moment you choose to question those beliefs instead of accepting them as law. When a thought rises, I'll never succeed, I'm not good enough, they won't accept me, don't just let it pass. Don't let it sit in your mind like an uninvited guest. Stop. Grab it. Look it in the eye and ask, is this true? And more importantly, is this always true? Because that's where you begin to dismantle it. Maybe you've convinced yourself you're not a leader. But is that a fact? Or is it something you believed because you were once overlooked? Maybe you've decided you're bad at relationships, but is that an identity or the result of wounds never fully healed? You see, when you get quiet and ask the hard questions, the illusions start to crack. You begin to realize most of your self-doubt was never based in objective truth. It was based in moments that shaped you when you were too vulnerable to push back. But now you're not that version of yourself anymore. You have more insight, more perspective, and most importantly, you have a choice. You can either keep living out someone else's narrative, or you can rewrite your own. That rewriting begins by interrogating every negative thought like it's on trial, because your mind, left to its own devices, will run with whatever story you give it. Not because it's trying to hurt you, but because it's trying to protect you. And protection often means avoidance. Avoiding risk, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding exposure. So when the brain says, you can't do this, what it might mean is, this feels unsafe. But growth only happens when you move beyond what feels safe. So you ask, where did this belief come from? Trace it back. Was it a parent, a teacher, a failure, a comment that struck you at a moment of weakness? And then ask yourself, is that source credible? Does that person, that moment, that failure have the authority to define your worth today? If the answer is no, and it almost always is, then you have to take that thought off the throne. You have to dethrone the lie. This is not about pretending you're perfect. It's about refusing to let distorted beliefs go unchallenged. It's about becoming a conscious gatekeeper of your inner world. Because your internal reality shapes every external outcome. And if your mind is built on lies, then the life you build will be fragile. A house standing on sand. Imagine what changes when you stop accepting every negative thought as truth. Imagine the power that returns when you start replacing, I'm not good enough, with, I'm growing every day. Not from a place of denial, but from a place of clarity. Because the truth is, you have failed, yes. You have made mistakes. But so has everyone who has ever done something worth doing. The difference is whether you choose to make those moments your prison or your proof. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not less than. Those are lies, and it's time you stopped feeding them. Your thoughts are not final. They're just options, possibilities. They only become reality when you choose to believe them. So start choosing wisely. Start asking better questions. Start demanding evidence. Because when you begin to question the lie, your brain starts to open. It starts to rewire. It starts to heal. That healing is not instant, but it is inevitable. If you keep showing up, keep noticing, and keep challenging what no longer serves you. Every time you confront a lie and speak a better truth, you weaken the old circuitry. And eventually, what once felt like a concrete wall becomes something you can walk through. So the next time the thought comes, and it will, don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Meet it head on. And with steady, grounded strength, ask, is this true? Or is this just old pain trying to speak again? Because once you learn to question the lie, you set your mind free to finally believe something better, something honest, something powerful. You've seen the thought. You've caught it in real time. You've questioned its truth. Now comes the part that separates those who stay stuck from those who break free: replacement. But not just any replacement. Not just feel-good phrases or forced positivity that cracks under pressure. What's needed now is a trained response. A new belief that isn't based on fantasy, but on conscious, disciplined repetition. This is where the science of your mind and the art of self-discipline collide, and where change becomes real. The human brain, though deeply complex, is astonishingly adaptable. This adaptability is called neuroplasticity, and it is one of the most hopeful facts about your existence. It means your brain can physically and chemically change based on how you use it. The connections between neurons strengthen with repetition. The beliefs you reinforce become easier to access, more automatic, and more emotionally convincing with time. You are not locked into the way you currently think. You are, right now, shaping how your brain will think tomorrow. But here's the catch: your brain doesn't care if what you're repeating is good or bad, true or false. It cares about what is familiar. If fear has been the dominant soundtrack in your mind for years, it's going to feel like truth, and your brain will keep serving it up first, not because it's right, but because it's what it knows. Rewiring the pattern is about interrupting that default. Every single time a negative thought surfaces, I'm not capable, it's too late, I always mess up, you must respond. Not with panic, not with self-judgment, but with deliberate, grounded truth. You recognize the thought, you acknowledge it, and then you speak what is actually real, not what your old fear says, what your growth says. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about bringing your beliefs into alignment with the reality you want to live in. It's about choosing thoughts that fuel action, not paralysis. Choosing beliefs that open doors, not close them. And make no mistake, it will feel uncomfortable at first, foreign, even dishonest, because you're not just thinking differently, you're challenging years of mental muscle memory. Imagine you've been using your right hand for everything your whole life, and now, suddenly, you're told to use your left. At first, it feels slow, frustrating, awkward. But with practice, your brain starts building new neural circuits. The awkward becomes easier, and eventually, it becomes natural. This is what happens when you rewire your thinking. The only way to build this new internal pattern is through deliberate, consistent repetition. You do it even when it doesn't feel powerful. You do it especially when you don't feel like it. You say, the truth. I am learning. I am growing. I am capable. I can try again. Not because you feel strong, but because you're building strength. Rewiring is not about never having the old thought again. It's about what you do when it shows up, because it will come back, especially when you're tired, discouraged, or under stress. That's when the brain retreats to its most familiar pathways. But if you've been doing the work, replacing, reinforcing, repeating, your new response will start to emerge faster, stronger, louder, until one day, without even trying, your first instinct is no longer self-doubt, it's grounded truth. And that moment changes everything. You no longer spiral into paralysis every time something goes wrong. You don't crumble under criticism. You stop making every mistake a confirmation of your unworthiness. Why? Because your brain has learned a new default. Not fear, not shame, but clarity, strength, focus. That is what rewiring looks like, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of a new inner voice that holds steady in the face of it. It's not flashy, it's not instant, but it is powerful, and it is within your reach. So the next time the old thought rises up, don't run from it. Don't believe it. Replace it every single time until your brain no longer leads with fear, but with the truth you've trained it to believe. You want to change your mind, move your body. Not later. Not when you feel like it. Now. Right now. Because the moment you start moving, your biology shifts, and with it, your psychology follows. This is not theory. This is wiring. This is wiring. This is how your system is built. Movement is not just physical. It is neurological. It is emotional. It is transformational. You cannot overthink your way into a better life. You cannot sit still and hope clarity arrives. The fastest way to break the mental fog, to stop the spiral of overthinking, to silence the volume of negativity screaming inside your head, is to move. When you move, your body sends signals to your brain. And one of the most important areas it activates is your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for focus, planning, problem solving, and calm thinking. When that area is active, the part of your brain responsible for survival, fear, and emotional reactivity, the limbic system, gets quieter. This is not motivation. This is mechanics. You are built this way. Your system is designed to use movement as a tool to regulate your emotional state. This is why so many people feel better after a walk, after a workout, after stretching their body even briefly. It's not a coincidence. It's how your nervous system shifts from chaos to control. And yet when the mind is low, when negative thinking floods in, the very thing that could help is the thing we avoid. You say, I don't feel like moving. And I understand that. I've been there too. Exhausted, stuck, frozen by thought. But here's the truth: movement doesn't require motivation. It requires a decision. It doesn't have to be a 10-mile run or a heavy gym session. It can be 5 minutes, one stretch, one set of push-ups, one walk around the block. That small action tells your brain, I am not stuck. I am not a victim. I can choose movement. And once you move, everything else follows. Blood flow increases. Dopamine rises. That's the neurochemical of motivation. Serotonin stabilizes. That's your mood regulator. You don't just feel better by chance. You feel better because your brain is receiving chemical reinforcement that tells it you're okay. That's what movement does. It gives your mind evidence that you're not helpless. That shift is everything, because negative thinking thrives in stillness. When you're sitting for hours, slumped over, scrolling, spiraling, thinking in circles, the body becomes a mirror of the mind, and the mind becomes a reflection of the body. You can't break that cycle by thinking harder. You have to disrupt the pattern with your physiology. Think about this. When you're afraid, your body tightens. When you're depressed, your shoulders slump, your breathing shortens. But when you stand tall, when you breathe deeply, when your arms swing as you walk, you begin sending a new message to your brain. I am safe. I am capable. I am in motion. And the brain responds in kind. Movement is not just about physical health. It is about mental resilience. It is about giving yourself an edge, a biological edge, against the storm inside your head. If your thoughts feel heavy, move. If anxiety is taking over, move. If you feel stuck, if you're lost, if you're drowning in your own thinking, move. Not because it's a magic cure, but because it's a manual override. You are manually shifting your system from shutdown to power. It's not about perfection. You don't have to love working out. You don't have to run marathons. You don't need a gym membership. You need a decision. A decision to no longer let your mind lead the way when it's stuck in fear. You need 5 minutes, 10 steps, 1 squat, 1 stretch. That's all. And once you start, your brain will follow. The truth is, you are not fragile. You are not as broken as your thoughts tell you. You are not lost beyond repair. You are simply stuck in a pattern that can be disrupted through motion. Movement is proof that you are still here, that you still have control, that you are still capable of building momentum. Every warrior trains, not because they feel ready, but because they understand discipline builds strength when motivation fails. So don't wait to feel better to move. Move to feel better. Train your nervous system like you train your muscles. Let your body lead the way when your mind can't see clearly. And when you feel that first shift, that clarity, that power returning, you'll know you're not helpless. You're not weak. You're a warrior. And this moment of motion is the beginning of your return. The mind does not exist in a vacuum. It is not a closed system. It absorbs, it reacts, it adjusts, and it becomes, in large part, a reflection of what surrounds it. And this is a truth many people miss when they try to fight their negative thinking. They try to change their thoughts while living in the same toxic environment that created them. They try to become calm while surrounded by chaos. They try to build confidence while constantly exposed to criticism, noise, or comparison. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, why nothing changes, why the old patterns always return no matter how much mental effort they pour in. The truth is simple, but unrelenting. You cannot plant a seed in poison soil and expect it to grow. Even the strongest seed, even one full of potential, strength, and life, will wither in the wrong conditions. And your mind, your thoughts, your self-belief, they are seeds. What they become depends on the environment they grow in. If you're surrounded by people who constantly doubt you, diminish you, or operate in fear, you will feel it. Even if you're not fully aware of it, your nervous system will register their tone, their energy, their language, and it will begin to shape your inner world accordingly. Over time, you may start thinking smaller, speaking less confidently, or holding yourself back, not because you're weak, but because your environment trained you to survive, not to thrive. And the training is subtle. It's not always someone yelling in your face. Sometimes it's passive cynicism. Sometimes it's watching people settle and never question it. Sometimes it's scrolling through a feed full of people pretending to be perfect. While you sit in your sweatpants comparing your reality to their highlight reel, you must understand this: the brain learns through exposure and repetition. If what you're exposed to is shallow, fearful, or hostile, your mind adapts to protect you in that environment by becoming cautious, negative, anxious, and you start mistaking that adaptation for your identity. But it's not who you are. It's who you became to survive in the conditions you were placed in. Which means the moment those conditions change, the real you has a chance to come back to life. If you want to kill negative thinking, you must do more than resist it. You must outgrow the environment that fuels it. That means getting intentional about every single input: what you hear, what you see, what you absorb. That means being willing to step away from people who drain your energy, who keep you small, who echo your worst thoughts back to you as if they are facts. That means being willing to clean out the noise. The toxic podcasts, the superficial conversations, the entertainment that fills your head with fear, shame, or numbness. You don't rise by accident. You rise by design. You shape your surroundings to support your transformation, not sabotage it. What do you listen to when you're alone? Who are the voices that speak into your silence? Because those voices don't disappear. They echo. The podcast you listen to in the morning becomes the inner monologue in your mind that afternoon. The video you watch when you're anxious rewires the emotion that will return next time you feel afraid. These inputs are not harmless. They are powerful tools, or weapons, depending on what you choose. And sometimes the change begins with one brave act: walking away. Not with hatred, not with drama, but with clarity. You walk away from rooms where you feel like you're shrinking, from conversations that steal your energy, from relationships that only survive if you stay small. You walk away, not because you don't care, but because you care deeply about the person you are becoming. Some environments will never celebrate your healing. Some people will only love you if you remain broken in ways that make them comfortable. And it hurts to realize that, but it's freeing too. Because when you know that your healing will cost you certain environments, you stop seeing the loss as failure. You see it as growth. A different environment doesn't just mean different people. It means different choices. The physical space you live in, how does it affect your mind? Is it cluttered with distraction? Is it chaotic and reactive? Or is it a space that invites calm, clarity, and focus? You don't need wealth to create peace. You need intention. One clean space, one candle, one corner with no screen, one walk outside. These are the choices that protect your mental soil. And yes, you'll still have moments of negativity. You'll still have thoughts that sting, that drag, that whisper old lies. But when you are in the right environment, those thoughts don't grow as easily. They don't take root as deeply, because the soil has changed, the light has changed, the noise has quieted, and that space allows you to respond with truth, with strength, with the calm you've been trying to force in all the wrong places. This is not a call to isolate yourself. It's a call to surround yourself wisely, to build a new garden for your mind to grow in, to curate your world, not perfectly, but purposefully. Because every moment you spend in a healthy environment where your potential is recognized, where truth is spoken, where peace is practiced, your brain starts to shift. It stops preparing for battle and starts preparing for expansion. It stops bracing for judgment and starts reaching for growth. And your self-talk starts to reflect that shift. It's not magic, it's physics. You reflect what you're surrounded by. So ask yourself, what am I around the most? What patterns am I reinforcing just by being in the same place, the same habits, the same emotional loops? And then ask the harder question, what am I willing to change? Because everything changes when the environment does. And you're not here to stay stuck. You're here to grow, to rise, to rebuild. And that begins with choosing an environment worthy of the life you're ready to build. There will always come a moment when you're tired, not just physically, deeply, emotionally, spiritually. A kind of fatigue that doesn't go away with sleep. A kind that comes from carrying a weight you've been trying to shake off for years. That weight is the voice in your head. The constant resistance, the negative thinking, the belief that maybe, just maybe, you're not enough. That no matter how hard you try, you're always just behind, just off, just one more failure away from quitting. And in that moment, willpower won't be enough. Because willpower is a spark. It gets you started. It gets you out of bed. It gets you to write the first page, take the first step, show up for the first time. But it fades. It burns out under pressure. And if the only fuel you have is willpower, you will stall the moment resistance shows up. And resistance always shows up. What keeps you going when the spark dies is not more effort. It's not grit alone. It's not forcing yourself to push harder when your heart is breaking. What keeps you going is meaning. It is the deeply rooted reason beneath the struggle. It is the quiet truth behind the noise. It is the answer to the question, why do I keep fighting? Without a why, the mind folds. Without a why, negative thoughts win. Because when fear rises and doubt screams, if there's no deeper purpose pulling you forward, your brain will retreat. It will choose comfort. It will choose avoidance. It will go back to what's familiar, even if that familiarity is pain. But if you are anchored to something bigger, a mission, a person, a promise, you become resilient in a way no technique, no affirmation, no self-help book can teach you. You suffer with direction. You fight with reason. You endure with fire. Think of any human who's done something extraordinary, not just externally successful, but internally aligned. They didn't do it on willpower alone. They were anchored. There was something deeper pulling them through their darkness. A commitment to family. A vow to never return to their lowest point. A vision that kept showing up in their mind even when nothing else made sense. This isn't about fantasy. This is about survival. Real mental strength isn't born in perfect conditions. It's born in fire, in moments where everything inside you is breaking, but you refuse to break with it. And you don't refuse because you're superhuman. You refuse because you've made a decision, I will not waste this life. I will not waste this pain. That's what anchoring to purpose looks like. It means you stop waiting for motivation and start listening to conviction. You stop depending on how you feel and start moving because you must. Because you said you would. Because your future self, your family, your faith, your contribution to the world, they all depend on you holding the line when it would be easier to quit. Goals are not enough. Goals are fragile. You don't get out of bed for a number on a scale or a number in your bank account when life punches you in the gut. But you do get up for someone you love. You do get up for the version of you that refused to die when life tried to kill your spirit. You do get up for the future you're building. One small, messy, deliberate choice at a time. So if you're stuck, if negative thoughts are louder than truth, stop trying to fight them with force alone. Get still. Get brutally honest. Ask yourself, what matters more than my fear? What is worth suffering for? Who am I doing this for? It could be your children, the ones watching you silently, learning how to navigate struggle based on how you respond. It could be your younger self, the one who didn't have a voice, the one who needed someone to show them it was okay to fight back. It could be the future version of you, the one who is free, who is strong, who wakes up without anxiety weighing on their chest. You don't have to have all the answers, but you do need an anchor, something that holds you steady when the storm comes. And when you find that why, you hold on to it with everything you've got. You write it down. You repeat it every day. You visualize it in detail because your brain needs reminders. It forgets under pressure. It forgets in fatigue. But if you keep bringing your why to the surface, eventually it becomes automatic. It becomes your new default. It becomes the reason you don't stay down when everything inside you tells you to stop. The truth is, the darkness will come. You will have days when your thoughts betray you. You will question your worth. You will doubt your path. That's not weakness. That's the cost of becoming someone new. But the darkness doesn't get to win. Not when you're anchored to something deeper than emotion. And here's something powerful: when you live from purpose, your pain doesn't go to waste. It becomes fuel. It becomes wisdom. It becomes a tool you use to help others. Because when you heal, you don't just heal for yourself. You heal for everyone who needs your light, everyone watching, everyone hurting, everyone waiting for someone like you to rise. You are not here to survive. You are here to build, to love, to create, to guide, to rise. You were given breath not by accident, but because your presence here matters. And if you let fear drive the vehicle, you'll miss the very reason you were born. So remember this: when the thoughts come, and they will come, the ones that say, why try? What's the point? You're not enough. Your job is not to out-yell them. Your job is to anchor, to remind yourself of what's more important than fear. And when you do that consistently, when you live aligned with a reason greater than your resistance, you don't just survive the storm, you become the storm. You stop being the person tossed around by your emotions, and you become the person who walks through the fire with your head held high. Not because it's easy, not because it's perfect, but because your why is stronger than your weakness. So the question now is not, how do I stop thinking negatively? The real question is, what is so important to me, so deeply true, that I'm willing to fight through the noise for it? That's your anchor. Find it, hold it, lev it. In the end, when all the noise of the world quiets, when the crowd goes silent, when the feedback stops and the distractions fade, you're left alone with one thing: the voice in your own head. It's the most consistent companion you'll ever have. And whether it empowers or destroys you depends entirely on how you've trained it to speak. That voice, your inner dialogue, is not neutral. It either builds you or breaks you. It either becomes the root of your strength or the source of your shame. And far too often, that voice turns into an internal enemy. You know the voice I'm talking about. The one that says, you're failing, even when you're trying your best. The one that whispers, they're better than you, when you're already feeling fragile. The voice that replays your mistakes, your regrets, your fears, and frames them as evidence that you're unworthy, unprepared, or incapable. And here's the dangerous part: over time, you start to believe it. Not because it's true, but because it's repeated. And the brain, when it hears something enough times, begins to code it as reality. That's why mastering your inner conversation isn't just helpful. It's vital. Because no matter how much progress you make externally, if your internal world is toxic, you will sabotage yourself again and again. You'll find ways to disqualify your own success. You'll downplay your strengths. You'll hesitate to act because your mind has convinced you you're not ready. And all of this happens in silence, a quiet war that no one sees but you. The irony is, if someone else spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, you'd call it abuse. If someone told you every day that you weren't enough, you'd cut them out. If someone mocked your pain, minimized your dreams, or constantly highlighted your flaws, you'd call them toxic. Yet somehow, when it's our own voice doing the damage, we let it slide. We normalize it. We call it just being real with myself. But there's nothing real about cruelty. There's nothing honest about shame. And there's nothing noble about treating yourself like an enemy in the name of being tough. The truth is, you've likely internalized voices from your past. Voices of criticism, disappointment, or rejection, and unknowingly made them your own. That's what the mind does. It absorbs, it adopts, it repeats. But here's the radical truth: just because a voice is loud doesn't mean it's right. Just because it sounds familiar doesn't mean it's yours. You don't have to keep agreeing with every thought that crosses your mind. You have the power to confront it, to reshape it, to choose a better voice. But this doesn't happen by accident. You have to train your inner dialogue like you train a muscle. You have to catch it when it slips into old patterns and redirect it, not with toxic positivity, but with intentional truth. When your mind says, I can't do this, you don't pretend everything's perfect. You answer with grounded strength, this is hard, but I'm capable. When it says, I always mess things up, you respond, I've failed before, but I've also learned, and I'm still learning. These aren't affirmations. They're declarations of reality, of balance, of grace, and they become your new inner soundtrack. That voice, that self-talk, is the soil where every thought grows. If it's harsh, your beliefs will be fragile. If it's kind, your confidence will be rooted. This is why so many people never feel safe, even when they're in safe places. Because the battlefield is inside. The fear isn't from what's happening externally. It's from what their own mind is saying about it. And here's something important. You are not weak for needing a better voice. You are not weak for struggling with self-talk. You are human. You were never taught how to speak to yourself with compassion. You were taught how to criticize, how to correct, how to measure your worth by productivity and performance. So when you try to speak kindly to yourself now, it might feel foreign, maybe even fake. That's okay. That's normal. What feels fake at first becomes familiar with practice. Think of how you'd speak to someone you love, someone you truly believe in. You wouldn't lie to them. You wouldn't coddle them. But you also wouldn't beat them down. You'd hold them accountable with love. You'd challenge them with belief. You'd remind them of their strength when they forgot it. That's what your inner voice should sound like. And you deserve that. Not someday, not when you've earned it. Now, one of the most powerful things you can do is begin your day with intention around your inner dialogue. Before the world speaks, you speak first. You don't wait to react. You initiate. You remind yourself, I'm allowed to grow slowly. I'm allowed to make mistakes and learn. I'm allowed to be proud of how far I've come. These small statements aren't empty. They are the scaffolding that supports your inner world when everything else shakes. And at night, you end the day with the same intentionality. You don't replay every mistake. You don't rehearse every regret. You sit with yourself, not to judge, but to reflect. You ask, what did I learn today? What did I do right? Where can I grow tomorrow? This is how you train your mind to support you instead of sabotage you. Because that voice in your head, it's not just narrating your life. It's shaping it. It's either closing your heart or expanding it. It's either shrinking your vision or clarifying it. And once you begin to master it, everything changes. Your decisions change, your posture changes, your resilience increases. Not because life gets easier, but because you've become safer inside your own mind. And here's the deepest truth of all. The inner child still lives inside you. The one who once didn't know how to defend themselves. The one who absorbed blame that wasn't theirs. The one who thought being hard on themselves was the only way to stay strong. That child still hears your voice every day, and it's your job now to protect them, to speak the words they always needed, to make your inner world a home, not a war zone. So no more cruelty disguised as self-awareness. No more shame pretending to be humility. No more tolerating a voice that breaks you down. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to become whole. You want a better life. Start with better words. The ones you say when no one else can hear, because those words echo louder than any applause and last longer than any failure.